Chapter 3. Lysoni was walking again, her pack much heavier now. For some reason, she was crying, her eyes stinging from the clay and minerals of her face paint. An unrelenting flood of angry words, yelling and wailing, drove her onward. As she stumbled towards the approaching storm, lightning struck her in the chest, making every muscle in her body convulse. She woke with a start, her right calf cramping so hard that Lysoni feared it might tear clean off the bone. Standing up quickly, she chugged an entire water skin, the minerals relaxing her leg. A dream, just a dream, she reassured herself, walking tight circles in the small tent. Her mother was nowhere in sight, probably out dancing to the drums that reverberated through the hides and saplings of their shelter. With her leg behaving itself, she prepared for the festivities. Sweat could lead to freezing if away from a fire, so Lysoni mopped it up with a mixture of dried moss and carob powder. Feeling a little refreshed, she focused on decorating herself, if only to please her mother. She hadn't untangled her hair before sleeping, so now all she could do was finger-shape it into a bun and then secure it with polished sticks and cord. Pouring a bowl of water, she stared into the makeshift mirror. Frowning, she decided to deviate from her usual makeup pattern. After a light dusting with clay powder, she applied a mixture of fats and various pigments to her body and face. Reds, greens, grays, and black went everywhere, and she was having fun breaking from traditional designs. But suddenly, she paused in mid-smear. Taking her finger away from the green streak of eyeshadow, Lysoni realized this was the same pattern from her dream, but she quickly dismissed it as simply bleeding into wakefulness. She continued drawing and dabbing until she felt satisfied. Well, maybe a little more red at the corners of her eyes. There, all done. The brisk air sharpened her senses outside, making her want to find a fire to huddle around. A few drunken revelers stumbled into her, pinning her against a wooden fence. Frustrated, she pushed past them into the night and the crowds. She chatted with her own clan for a while, but she already knew their stories. Just a short stroll away was the mysterious and alluring Longlegs. The two cultures performed a shared dance style in the communal space between their encampments. The Longlegs had slowed down, incorporating more squatting to match the spear's height. The spears had tried to speed up slightly, with sharper lunges and hip thrusts, each side adapting moves to pump up the other's desire. And that desire often led to amorous couples claiming one of the huts designated for such rendezvous. Lysoni could hear the moans and heavy breathing of those that dared to forge new alliances and family lines, which carried the risk of banishment if things took a turn for the worse. Trying to ignore the blatantly messy sounds assaulting her ears, Lysoni looked past the shifting firelight at a handsome Longleg, alone just like her. She guessed he would be taller than her if he stood up. With his strong jaw and his short-cropped beard, he was well kept. Muscular but not overly so, Lysoni thought, as her eyes slowly wandered over his chest and arms. And those muscles displayed 100 scars and tattoos, which would please her mother to no end. As light and shadow danced over his face, he seemed utterly enthralled by the fire, ignoring all the half-naked women milling around him. His eyes were glazed, but not from a drunken stupor like those of the fermented drinks. It was an inner stare, and it indicated that he, too, was familiar with the sacred plants. Lysoni sensed he saw everything going on around and within himself. Suddenly, he looked up from the fire and right into her soul. Frantically, she struck up an awkward conversation with the nearest spear and cursed her own greedy, lingering eyes. The night stretched on, and while she resisted the frothy, foul-smelling alcoholic drinks, she might have drunk too much of her twig tea. Lysoni broke away from the fire, her bladder demanding that she find a dark place to squat. Thankfully, she was already peeing when a voice suddenly came from alongside. "Feels good, Runine said, letting her prodigious stream cut through the grass with a hiss. making Lasoni cinch up. Damn you! Call my name next time. You could have been a cat or a wolf. I am a lioness, haha, Runine said, giving her ass a shake as she finished. Standing up swiftly, she stretched towards the heavens and yelped. Sha sha sha, ayah! Quiet, Lasoni hissed, feeling more embarrassed than usual by her strange friend. Pah, you quiet, you! Hey, did you eat from pouch yet? No, what does it do? Lasoni asked, unsure if she wanted to experiment with a new herb at the height of a celebration. Oh, little bird, what I tell you so long, so many seasons, Runine chastised, feigning anger and disappointment. Take, and talk later, Lasoni repeated in a mocking, sing-song voice. Fishing the new herb from the pouch with an eye roll, Lasoni looked it over in the moonlight and crinkled her nose, sniffing it. Bitter? Not sweet, Runine answered honestly, shrugging. Lasoni wished she had some of the honeycombs from last autumn, but such was not her luck tonight. Ugh, she exclaimed, putting the compressed chunk of pungent mat into her mouth and attempting to soften it with cautious gnawing. Like chewing sap. Haha, yes, sap. Sap with mud, Runine considered as she sniffed the night air like a meerkat. How soon? Lasoni asked, not wanting to fall down or throw up just yet. Oh, soon. Very soon. You ready? Lasoni was absolutely not ready, but her nervous, quickened pulse was busily circulating the herb's magic regardless. Okay, bye now. I go watch, Runine said, heading towards one of the more vocal and wet-sounding mating tents. What? Oh, ew, Lasoni shouted after her. If nothing else, Runine was fearless and unrelenting. Refreshing qualities amongst the people that lived and died by the tossing of bones or patterns of worms on carrion. Lasoni stood there, chewing the herb and thinking. Who had that been, the boy by the fire? She had never seen him at previous gatherings. Still, it was common for the Longlegs to enslave conquered enemies, swelling their numbers without the dangers of childbirth. So perhaps there were even more unknown tribes from far-off places. A tribe of beautiful, tall, full-lipped, Lasoni had started recalling his alluring face. But a sudden and unexpected wave of minty tingling radiated through her entire body, her hair standing on end. Shivering intensely, Lasoni wished she wasn't so far away from the fire. But as soon as she thought it, she was by the fire again. Wait, where did the moment go? After being cold, from remembering the fire, how good it feels till now. Lasoni didn't like these new effects, not one bit. Yes, she had gotten used to time skips ever since that first naive taste of herbs by the river, but this time it was far more intense and abrupt, like she had run full speed and then lost traction on a frozen lake, sliding across and slamming into the now. The fire was also way too hot, amplified. Lasoni was forced back, feeling her blood might boil. Suddenly, she felt hands on her shoulders, causing her to spin around in shocked self-defense. Easy, you were falling, the long-legged boy said, his words soothing as she blushed. Was not, is all she could muster as her world spun into his pupils. Fine, I was wrong. Now your back is to fire. Be careful, he offered nervously as she rocked on her heels. Hey, you want to sit? I'll protect you from any wild animals, and yourself. She knew what he meant in both cases. Amongst spears and Longlegs, the outcome was the gods' decisions if you drank freely from the sacred vessels. Some embraced this lack of accountability, just as others were scarred for life. For some strange reason, though, she trusted him. Yes, okay, but just sitting, she stated with a knit brow. The recognition on the boy's sympathetic face seemed reassuring. Still, a wave of disorientation hit her again, making her legs weak like a newborn calf. I feel so heavy, Lasoni said, her words reverberating in her head, quickly losing meaning. The boy guided her wobbling body towards a nearby cushion, helping her down, then wrapped his muscular arms around her. It wasn't sexual, just a simple warning to other males that she wasn't going anywhere. Well, maybe a little sexual. Her head felt like it was spinning, whipping around at the end of a sling. And he felt so good against her, robust yet refined, powerful yet restrained. His words were crisp, less guttural and angry sounding than hers, sharper, more precise. Like the clay flutes they play, clay birds, she thought, drifting in and out of consciousness.